are the storylines for this season. Big Ten going for a three-peat. Of course, Michigan won the title a couple of years ago, followed by Ohio State. You know, the Big Ten hasn't won 3 straight national championships since Bernie Bierman did 2 of them for Minnesota. And Paul Brown won the first one for Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith, one of the big reasons that Ryan Day, after getting that albatross taken from around his neck, was able to hoist that trophy. The Buckeyes will try to go back-to-back. But I'm not sure anybody returns more than the Clemson Tigers. 85% of their offensive production back, led by Cade Klubnik. The wide receivers have Antonio Williams back. Their young receivers from a year ago have gained some maturity, and Klubnik really came into his own. Is there another level for Clemson? They will open up against LSU in week 1 in what will be a stern test for the real Death Valley. In North Carolina on Labor Day night will take on TCU, and it will be the debut of Chapel Bill Belichick, 6-time Super Bowl champion as a head coach, a couple of more as a coordinator, leading the Tar Heels in his first exposure as a head coach to college football. Of course, his dad was a longtime assistant coach at Navy, and he knows the ins and outs of the game, and he's made Carolina the goal of the 33rd NFL franchise. So, the SEC emerges from this long, nightmarish 2-year drought of not winning or even playing for a national championship. Who emerges? Will it be Alabama? Ton of defense back. New quarterback breaking in that might actually fit the system a little bit better. And is anybody really paying enough attention to Georgia? Dylan Bell will be back. They've gotten some new guys from the transfer portal on the outside. But the dominant storyline in the early season is going to be this guy, Arch Madness. Is Arch Manning of Texas everything that he's been advertised to be? And is he that right now? He may be that on Saturday against Ohio State, or it may take a while. Either way, his performance largely holds the fate of the Longhorns in his hands. They're going to have to replace some offensive linemen. They've got some transfers on the defensive front to fill in some of those gaps. But quarterback's the most important position on the field, and they've got a guy who's super, super talented. Got a little bit of run a year ago.
The best part for Arch is that he's been in this system for 3 years. And to have that consistency from the play caller and then also being around the guys, you know, when you come in as a 5-star recruit, man, if you can come in and kind of harness that leadership, but also that respect, because he didn't get a chance to start. He could have technically went somewhere else, but he wanted to hang in there. But I think the biggest key for him, expectation-wise, is use your weaponry. Don't feel like you have to be, you know, the hero every single play. Sometimes if it calls for you to check it down on the 3rd down, do that. You have a great defense on that side. 3 guys are All-Americans on that defense. Also, you got a slew of running backs as well. And again, one of the best play callers in the country in Steve Sarkisian. So he's going to handle all the expectations. The Heisman, all that stuff will come. Just handle the first thing against Ohio State.
It's going to be interesting because he brings a different dynamic. He brings the running aspect from the quarterback position, which Texas used him in a little bit last year in certain packages. That incorporating that into Steve Sarkisian's offense is going to be fascinating. What types of dimensions does that open up for a play caller who's one of the absolute best in the country in Steve Sarkisian?
That's one of the reasons I have so much confidence that Arch is going to be fantastic early, is because Sark is going to put him in position to do things well. Things he can execute. I think back to when Mac Jones took over at Alabama, and Sark was the offensive coordinator, and there were many people who thought, well, this won't last. Bryce Young will be in there, the true freshman. This can't. He did what Mac did well. Now, he had weapons around him, as Arch is going to have a little bit. But it's not just Arch. You look at the preseason top 10, half of those teams have quarterbacks who have 2 or fewer starts.
Yeah, that's the biggest storyline to me coming into the season, is all of the new powerhouses that have new quarterbacks. Arch Manning, we've seen. Dante Moore, we haven't seen a lot of Julian Sayin, CJ Carr, Ty Simpson. We've seen a ton of Carson Beck, but not in his current, not at Miami, not in his current place. Bryce Underwood's a true freshman. And then the exciting John Mateer coming over for Oklahoma. The last 4 national champions, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, all breaking in new quarterbacks. So does that open up the window for teams that haven't been to the mountaintop, like a Penn State? Clemson, it's been a while. Does it open up for a sleeper, like a South Carolina who brings back Lenora Sellers? It's going to be fascinating because this season is about which of these first-year starters at quarterback really takes that step in their first real large sample size of game action.
And that relies on offensive coordinator, because that's his job to now give that young quarterback some opportunities to really get confidence. And once you get confidence as a starter, I mean, all these guys for the most part were 5 or 4-star recruits. So there's a reason why they've earned these jobs. They're good players. It's just a matter of getting that consistency, getting those reps, and hopefully getting wins, because that's the big thing. Nobody cares about you not being able to start a lot of games. You still got to go out there and win.
The other thing is that in a transfer portal era, how much more difficult is it for a first-year starter to get that buy-in in the locker room? You know, it's easy for Quinn Ewers, who's been the starter for multiple years, to have transfers come in and automatically respect him. And it's probably easy for Arch Manning. Is it that easy for a guy coming over, or for a guy starting for the first time like a CJ Carr or someone else who hasn't had the game reps to prove that they can do it?
You know, it's a really interesting concept, because when these quarterback races are decided, sometimes coaches have to take that into consideration. What happens if the guy struggles?
Yeah.
If you pick the guy that the fans don't want and maybe the locker room is not sure about, then you start the noise. You go the other way, if you make the change, and hopefully you won't have to, much easier change to make. Both of these guys that we're going to see in the Iowa State-Kansas State game, both of them have started, but sometimes that's all you need in the Big 12. 5 straight seasons with a different champion. Now think about this in Big 12 history. Came into existence in 1996, right? 30 years. The only program that has ever repeated as Big 12 champion, Oklahoma. Somebody's not in the conference anymore. Arizona State was picked to finish last year. They won the thing. I think they've got a good chance to be the team that breaks that string with Oklahoma being the only repeat champion. Big 12 is wide open, though. You got to win your close games. That's the whole thing.
That's the key, Rece. You have to win the close games because you got to play 60-minute ball games. But I like Baylor. I think Baylor brings back a lot of talent. Sawyer Robertson at quarterback. I know the defense is going to be stout. I believe they have a linebacker that was a second in the Big 12 as far as tackles. He's coming back in a young sophomore running back as well that had 1,000 yards. So I think, again, it's wide open, but ultimately it's about who can win those close games and also who can win at home. I think that's the big key as well. You got to win your home games, because you go to some of these environments where it's not too friendly, that's where you end up having losses.
And we can talk all about favorites. I think Iowa State, Kansas State certainly there, Arizona State. I'm going to go to a sleeper. Keep an eye on Utah this year. They've got 2 tackles that could be first-round picks, could be top 10 picks. They brought over a new coordinator in Jason Beck, who got Devin Dampier at quarterback. They have been plagued by bad quarterback play the last few seasons because of injuries to Cam Rising. That defense is always good. It's top 5 defense in the Big 12 last year. If they can figure out the offensive side of the ball, then I think they could be a sleeper.
Yeah, Dampier was terrific at New Mexico. Now he's at Utah. Baylor plays Auburn in week 1. That's a good test on a Friday night. There'll be a really big test game there as well. It's going to be a huge slate of games in the first full week of college football next week. Pete Thamel is joining us now. And Pete, we've got Ohio State, Texas, we've got LSU, Clemson, you got Alabama, Florida State. We've got all kinds of big brand names squaring off in week 1.
Yeah, Rece, I'm going to give you one from the 3 top 10 matchups that we have. You guys obviously talked a lot about Arch Manning in Texas and Ohio State. I had some scouts tell me that a little wise guy take on this game, guys. They think this is going to be a bit of a defensive slog. You look at it from Texas' perspective, they have Anthony Hill at linebacker. They have Colin Simmons at defensive end, 2 of the better players at their positions in the country. And then you have Matt Patricia taking over the Buckeye defense. They have Caleb Downs. He may be the best player in the country, period. And Sonny Styles. Look for those new quarterbacks to have a little bit of a struggle adjusting in the shoe. Clemson, LSU. To me, guys, this might be the best game of the season in college football. I was told 3 dozen NFL scouts and 4 GMs will be at that game. They're obviously there to see Cade Klubnik and Garrett Musnire. You guys talked about those guys. They've combined for over 13,000 yards passing. Both going to end up being top 10 picks. And then finally, Miami, Notre Dame. Rece, I'm fascinated about Carson Beck. A year ago at this time, he was on the trajectory to be a top 10 pick. He gets hurt, obviously, in the SEC title game. He goes to a Miami team that's pretty loaded. They have a great offensive line, elite defensive line. Can he rejuvenate that trajectory that he was on last year? Pretty good showcase against the Irish Sunday night.
Are they the team you think that could win the SEC, or do you like someone else?
I think they could. I actually like Alabama, though, coming into this season. And a lot of it, for me, starts up front. On the offensive line. They've got an All-American center back in Parker Brailsford. They've got maybe the number 1 overall pick, potential number 1 overall pick at tackle in Caden Proctor. And a ton returning on this defense. And it's Kalen DeBoer's second year. Ryan Grubb on the offensive side returns as the offensive coordinator with Ty Simpson at quarterback. The receiving core is going to be phenomenal. there's questions at running back. Jam Miller's injury certainly does hurt them, but I think that offensive line could shape up to be one of the best in the country. So you can plug me back there at running back and we'll get enough production. But EJ, I really feel great about the totality of this Alabama program and the chip they've got on their shoulder after not winning 10 games for the first time since Coach Saban's first year.
Yeah, and they play my nose in week 1, so we're going to find out about that.
Yeah, how much do you like Alabama?
Well, I like Texas a little bit more. The big thing with Texas, again, we've talked about Arch Manning, we've talked about the running backs, but again, that defense is what gives me a lot of confidence about the Longhorns. And look, I think when you look at Anthony Hill Jr., we haven't mentioned him at linebacker. He's a guy who played running back in high school. When you watch him play, the way he can shoot gaps, he kind of still has that, the remnants of an offensive player. Also, Michael Taft, who's a preseason All-American at safety. A lot of leadership still in that football team, and I understand they lost some guys to the NFL, but that's what happens when you have a championship caliber team. And the fact that they almost tasted that true success of winning the SEC almost, or playing for actual college football playoff championship. So they're right on the cusp, and I think now they get that opportunity this year.
Wait, I'm drawing a blank. Remind me, who's actually the defending SEC champion right now?
It's Georgia. It's Georgia. And the fact that we haven't talked about them probably means they're going to win the thing.
That's true.
People didn't understand the reference in Austin last year. Everybody on the game day said, everybody, Texas, horns. And I said, poor old Georgia. Yeah. Oh, I just hope they can get a first down. Mockingly, I said it.
Yeah, right.
I'll say it, poor old Georgia. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll stumble around and find a way to get a win. I mean, you're not playing against them. They've got a chance.
Yeah.
They had tore them up.
Pretty good chances when I played against them, too. I mean, those are some good teams.
Most of you probably know the news that came yesterday. The Southeastern Conference is going to add a 9th conference game. That will start in 2026. They will figure out how that will work exactly. They're going to be given 3 permanent opponents and rotate the others. But this is probably, my judgment here, a long-term play. Yeah. They're like, okay, you want us to play 9? We want that strength of schedule metric. Absolutely. We want it to count. Now, is that going to help the SEC? That remains to be seen year to year. But interesting concept. But, hey, all of us in television, more good games.
Yeah, it's great.
We're for it.
Those players have caused me a lot of headaches through the years. So I'm telling you, I mean, where do you want to start? Watson, Hopkins, and all the pass rushers. That's so many great defensive linemen.
We play the New England Patriots this year. We go to North Carolina, and then we go to Boston College to play Bill O'Brien. So I feel like I'm playing the whole Patriots organization in about a 2-week span there.
Can I jump in here on a couple questions?
Yeah, man.
We each kind of all have our little sayings, and I know you have the BYOG. What is that?
Oh, gosh.
And tonight, hey, it was BYOG, bring your own guts.
It was one of those things. It was kind of like the last thing I said to the team before the game.
Yeah.
And it went viral because that's what was in my head. And I just told the team, I'm like, you know what? Listen, hey, there's a lot we don't control. Like, we don't control the weather. We don't control this, and hey, I can give you a scholarship. I can give you a place to live. We can give you food. We can give you a scheme. We can give you, but I can't give you freaking guts. Like you gotta. This is a BYOG. You gotta bring your own guts. You gotta bring that. And we play the game. It was a crazy deal. It came down to the last play, a 2-point conversion.
Kaiser rolls, runs into traffic, and comes up a yard short. And the Clemson defense rises up.
And we stop them and win the game. And then all of a sudden, it's pouring, and they stick a microphone in front of your face, and they go, "What?" And I went, "Hey, it was BYOG, bring your own guts." And next thing I know, I'm a meme for life. I got Bill Belichick asking me about BYOG.
Hey, he asked you, what would you like to ask Bill Belichick?
What would be one thing you would say to a coach or a group of coaches of being able to maintain the competitive stamina, the thrill to go win again?
Having the right people and having the right culture, because you need people that want to keep achieving that goal. Even though we hit that one, it's like, like Brady Bruschi used to say, which ring do you like the best? The next one, and you just don't stop. It just keeps going. You just keep going. And I think it's getting people that believe in that, believe in the culture.
What if when Bill asked if he could ask the questions, if I said, No, Bill, do your job.
That'd been great.
Do your job.
That
Your
would've been
job is to answer questions, Bill.
Rece,
That
that
would
would
have
have
been
been
perfect.
You think? Well, I
well.
just went back to Chapel Hill earlier this week for an interview that you'll see some of it on College Game Day and some leading into that game. I wanted to be welcomed back. So, and that's
Smart,
it
smart move.
It was a great question he asked.
It was. Fantastic.
If Bill and the Tar Heels can get past TCU in that Labor Day game night, they're going to be undefeated when he sees Dabo next. Maybe October 4th? I mean,
they got a great chance. Look, Carolina and 70 new pieces on this football team, that's, somewhat of a question for your team if you're the Tar Heels, but also it's a question for the teams that are playing against you. How do you prepare for them? You can go back and watch the tape of Gio Lopez, which when he was at South Alabama. Now, this guy, I was really impressed when we were at his practice, Roddy, and I felt like one of the accuracy, throwing the catchable pass, too, was really big for me. Like, we were watching him in some of his one-on-one routes against some of the corners. A lot of these back shoulder throws that you see right here, it showed up as well in practice. He's tough. He's smart. When he came in and did the interview with us, I was really impressed with his view of the game as well. I think he's going to be a great piece, and I'm assuming he's going to be the starter for this football team. But, again, the leadership quality that he showed at South Alabama, if he can bring that to Chapel Hill, they should have a winner.
Yeah, knowing Bill Belichick from afar like we do, I think it's no secret that he's not going to name a starting quarterback until they trot him out against TCU, which is going to provide some game planning issues for TCU because there's a big difference with the skill sets of Gio Lopez and Max Johnson. And the question that Carolina has to figure out is how much quarterback run game do we want to use? And if the accuracy is close, then it's a matter of whether or not you want that as a piece of your offense. We all think Gio Lopez is going to be the starter, but Max Johnson does bring the experience of having started big games at multiple places.
I want to make a quick point about Max Johnson. The fact that he broke his leg a little less than a year ago, and he was running around.
Femur.
That's amazing. So kudos to him for even fighting back to be healthy enough to compete for this job. That's big time.
One more thing, Rece. The schedule is really friendly. In the ACC preseason poll, they play one of the top 5 and 5 of the bottom 6. So the schedule is very friendly outside of Clemson.
Yeah, the thing to amplify your point on Max Johnson, a great piece on ESPN.com. Max was afraid for a while that, he could have lost his leg, and it's just going to be great whenever he gets an opportunity to play at some point this season, whether that's Monday night against TCU, a week from Monday night, or later on in the season. It's just great that he's able to play. Pete's back with us now. As EJ alluded to, 70 new faces, I think, for the Tar Heels. What are you hearing? What kind of intel have you been able to pry out of Chapel Hill?
Well, Rece, you and I are uniquely qualified to talk about UNC. After all, in March, when we were down there for basketball game day, we went to UNC practice. Well, the only problem was the players didn't have names and numbers on their jerseys. And you and I didn't come away with a whole lot of conviction on what the Tar Heels were going to end up looking like. I think an important point the guys talked about Gio Lopez is Gio Lopez didn't come to UNC till after spring. That's quite frankly an indictment on what North Carolina thought they had at quarterback. So he's going to come in without a spring practice. Sonny Dykes told me this summer, Rece, that they're looking at Cam Newton film from the Patriots era to try to figure out what UNC may look like. So I think Bill has everybody just where they want him. Last week, when Bill was asked about his quarterback and his media availability, he said, don't worry, guys. I'm going to have Brandon, my SID, send you the depth chart, playing time, rotations. It'll be in your email soon. I keep refreshing, Rece. It hasn't come up yet. So I'm really surprised. The only good thing, Rece, is I'm not the poor sucker who has to call that game and do play-by-play on Monday night. Who is that?
I am told, Pete, with reliable sources, which I might have gotten from you, that there will be numbers on the jerseys when North Carolina plays. That's going to be very helpful.
Just there, can confirm they're on current numbers.
Yeah, they are. We've seen the practice video. And, the one thing, to Pete's point, I was told when I was down there this week that Bill is really enjoying the fact that nobody knows what they're doing right now. His Sonny's looking at Cam Newton film. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. We're all really fired up about the start of a college football season, but there is a hint of sadness. I'm not going to be able to spend inordinate amounts of time on College Game Day explaining the differences between ranking and seeding, with the hope that the fans will be ready for it, because we're going to straight seeding. No automatic buys for conference champions. Whatever the committee says is how the teams will be seeded. Now, the top 5 conference champions are still guaranteed a spot. So if the 5th highest ranked champion is 24th, then they get in, but they will get the 12th seed as it should be. You see some of the other changes that the committee will be implementing as they evaluate these teams and put out the rankings. We are joined by Heather Dinich, who does such a spectacular job in everything she does, but particularly covering the college football playoff for us. So, Heather, we've gone straight seeding. a lot of other talk. What are the most significant adjustments or changes outside of the seeding to the way the committee will go about its work?
Well, I think when you talk about the enhanced metrics, to just put it into perspective, we're talking about LSU Clemson, and the loser of that game is not going to get dinged in that committee meeting room, assuming that they play a decent, close game. And if you are Notre Dame and Northern Illinois like last year, and you lose that game like they did, you are going to get penalized. But it's still a very subjective system. And it's important to know that these metrics that have been enhanced, I don't think college football fans are really going to see anything change drastically in the weekly rankings, because the selection committee members, they use their eyes, they watch these games just like we all do, and they use common sense when they apply their analysis to it. But these metrics will help them, guide them in terms of the strength. But back to the seeding, remember, because it's not anymore locked in for the conference champions, this means that Notre Dame can now get one of those first round byes if it's ranked in the top 4.
Yes, it does. And I think what we saw last year just didn't feel right. So everyone's excited about that. Heather, I want to go back to the enhanced metrics. And so much has been made about this, the new strength of record, or the record strength metric that has been enhanced. Why was this needed? What was the impetus for them to go in and look at what they did last year and say, hey, we need something else to tell us how strong these schedules are being played?
Well, some of it can certainly be traced back to Indiana's place in the playoff with the number 68 strength of schedule on Selection Day. No Power 4 non-conference wins, no wins against top 25 opponents, and a loss to Ohio State. And even going into last season, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said, I want to see how the selection committee evaluates 3-loss teams that played a more difficult schedule against teams from other conferences, a la the ACC and the Big 12, who have fewer losses but played weaker schedules. And so this whole offseason, for the past 6 months, they have been working to try to help answer that question. But if you ask the Big Ten, this is important, they did not solve the problem. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti told me at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, people think there's some sort of magic metric that's going to help the selection committee do its job, and I don't think it's out there. That's why the Big Ten has turned its attention to a 24 or 28 team playoff model in 2026 and beyond.
I'm just going to say this flat out. I don't believe they're serious about this. I believe this is like when you go to sell your house and you say, I'm going to ask, $1 million more than I really will settle for. They're trying to get something back on the other side, because on its face, this is absurd. It's absurd on its face. So they have to be looking for something else. That's my guess. And I almost feel like the SEC's play to go to 9 games in the regular season saying, okay, let's see what you do with the strength of schedule metric. But the other thing is, all of these schedules are still going to be unequal. So, Heather, there's no way. I agree with Petitti on this. 100% agree. There's no magic metric. Somebody's going to be mad regardless of the answer, right?
Well, you are right in that there is no magic metric.
I know you're not
this is
agreeing.
going to be.
I saw the look on your face. You didn't like it when I said absurd. That's okay. And it's too big. It's too much.
Well,
it's too much.
But here's the thing. I would believe that the the Big Ten is serious about this 28-team model. I would believe that. And I think that even though the SEC has gone to a 9-game league schedule, that is not convincing people in the Big Ten to buy into the 5+11 16-team model because, Rece, of what you said earlier. It's still going to be extremely difficult for the selection committee with the SEC losing 3 games if they're playing 9 conference games. You're going to see far more, I think, 3-loss teams in the SEC. That bolsters the Big Ten's notion that automatic qualifiers are the way to go.
Here's the fallacy with it, Heather, and thank you very much. In my judgment, and reasonable minds can differ for sure, the fallacy is that expanding the playoff in, say, Major League Baseball, even the NBA, is a way to try to juice the regular season, to try to give the regular season some meaning. I would say that better than any sport we have in the country, The regular season in college football already has that juice. It already has the meaning. And if you do this, sometimes you can go too far in your size of your playoff to undermine the regular season. Don't believe me? Have a look at college basketball. I rest my case. Anyway, Heather Dinich, tremendous, always. We'll be working with Heather throughout the season. Committee rankings release schedule. The first release schedule will be November 4th. It'll take your way all the way through Selection Day on December 7th.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch them walk right past you. Run fast while you have the chance. Don't speak, let them look right at you.